So your last outing was freaking awesome. Like that was one of the best outings I have seen all year, maybe the best. Did you feel bad for Mike Trout?
No, I mean, I have so much respect for him that, I mean, he's the greatest player of all time. He'll be, he'll be all right.
He'll lick his wounds and look up to you for the rest of his life, I think.
Now here's the thing though. We can't let Mike Trout get a chip on his shoulder and have that little extra edge the next time I face him. So we got to downplay it, you know?
Okay. I gotcha. Yeah. I mean, you did get a kind of a lucky call on that little changeup on the.
No, it's fun. It's good in the moment. Then you see the highlight, and when it doesn't hit the box, like,
do you feel that? So like, is that your feeling like when you do that and you're looking back at your highlights? Because I get a little bit of that when I posted, like, oh, but it wasn't a strike though.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't feel as good, but it still feels pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, you toasted him on some other ones though too. Where did that, so I don't want to get into pitch grips. Now let's go into your approach. What is your approach when you're developing pitches? Like, you seem to be more of a vertically oriented guy, less horizontal approach and more vertically. Yeah. Is that intentional?
Yeah, I think it's just how my stuff profiles. I've got the hard four seam riding fastball. So I think just off of that, the depth pitches tend to be a little bit better.
Yeah, do you ever think in terms of, do you mentally think in terms of tunneling and stuff? Or is it just like, you're going to throw it maybe down the middle and just let your pitches work? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, ideally you want to tunnel everything, but a lot of times it's just compete mode, you know, like I'm trying to get strike one, I'm trying to get strike two. I don't really, if I throw a pitch in the zone and I don't hit my spot, but it gets the job done, then I work with that, you know? So it's not super duper, you know, scientific where I'm like sitting here really focused on that, but it's important, you know? So like if I'm trying to go up and away and I go up and in, then, you know, most of the time my off speed will still tunnel off of that. So it's an important part of it, but it's not necessarily my biggest focus on the mound.
Yeah. I mean, your stuff just plays. Like, when did that realization come in that you were going to be able to overpower and overwhelm hitters with your stuff?
In the major league level or just in my life?
Actually, both. I'm curious.
In my life, so growing up, I was always more of a shortstop than a pitcher, but I had a really good arm. So I'd always be like, the number 2 or 3 hardest throwing guy around. I would never be the number 1. So I always had kind of overpowering stuff from that point of view. Like I always, for the most part, was the hardest thrower and all that as a kid. And then high school, I gained like 10 miles an hour my sophomore year. And all of a sudden I was throwing in the mid 90s. And then it was overpowering from there. Minor leagues, I was pretty overpowering for most of the minor leagues until I got to AAA. And I had issues where my fastball kind of lost its life and started cutting more. And I just didn't have great feel for really anything at that point. Then 2019, 2020, I was not a very good pitcher. You could see all of the ingredients were there. But it was obvious that it wasn't being used well and it wasn't being maximized. So I think 2021 is when I really first started seeing success and started realizing, you know, I can just throw it in the zone and I should be okay. And then this year it's kind of taken it to the next step where it's like, all right, how do I be more precise with what I have? How do I maximize what I have? So 2021 was definitely the breakout and definitely the initial confidence boosting year. And now I'm just trying to take it to the next level.
So when you're saying, like, when you realize that your stuff is playing, is that more of the hitters telling you? Is it the analytics telling you? How do you judge yourself? How do you judge how your stuff plays? And is it a combination of all that?
Yeah, I would say most importantly, it's how the hitters are telling you. But a lot of times the analytics and the hitters will kind of tell you the same thing. So yeah, I mean, for me right now, it's just, you know, if I'm throwing it in the zone and I'm having good success, that's showing me that my stuff's where it needs to be.
Gotcha. And you said your fastball was cutting. Like, what were you able to pick up on that yourself, or is that something that maybe you use like an Edgertronic or something to like say, hey, my fingers aren't coming off it right, the ball's not spinning on the right axis?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I didn't. The biggest issue is I didn't know how to fix it, but I could see it. And then, on the cameras also we could see it, but it was just figuring out how to sort of stay behind the ball better. And when they hired Ethan Katz, our pitching coach, the first thing he did was call me and say, "Hey, I know how to fix you. I know how to fix you. Here's the core velocity belt. We're going to work in your lower half." And then it was kind of the rest is history.
So interesting. It was a lower half thing then. Were you not rotating all the way through or something?
I think I just wasn't synced up, and I think I was rotating too early. So it was causing me to kind of like come around the ball as opposed to driving the ball.
Gotcha. That's interesting. Lucas uses that too, right? He's a core velocity belt guy.
Yeah, he was.
I have one line around.
OG core velo belt guy.
Yeah. I mean, what did you get from that? Is it mostly the feel and the feedback that you're getting kind of?
Yes. So essentially before I had the belt, I tried to fix my mechanics with my mind by thinking, all right, ride down the mound longer. And what it comes down to is, as much as you may think your body's doing something, our bodies are it's sort of like a habit, like if you squat and do the same thing 1,000 times, your body kind of gets used to that and programmed to do that. So as much as I was thinking, hey, get down the mound or whatever the case may be, you really don't, it's a lot of times it doesn't sync up like that. So the core velo belt is really like, it's like showing your body the pattern of what it needs to do and how to do it. And you don't have to think about it. And that's where you want to be as a pitcher. You don't want to be thinking anything other than like, where does this pitch need to be and how do I need to get this batter out?
So you seem like a guy who thinks a lot. I heard you use the word ethereal the other day. That's a big word. I mean, like most pitchers may not be able to pull that out. So like, how do you turn off your mind? Like, what do you do to approach a start? How do you prepare, number one, and mentally, how do you go into it?
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of let the analytics department and Ethan do most of the heavy lifting in terms of thinking. Most of my thinking and effort is on what do I have to do to execute the pitch. So I'm a big visualization guy. That's really the biggest tool for me is visualization. And then on the mound, really, it's kind of getting in that flow state where I know it needs to be done. And once I find that rhythm, it's literally just get the ball and go.
So is that something that you've always had? Like the flows, being able to get in a flow state, being able to control your mind, because a lot of younger pitchers struggle with that.
I wouldn't say I've always had it. No, I spent a lot of time. I think I realized around the age of 19 or 20 that like the mental side of the game is in life and in baseball is damn near the most important thing. So I got really into yoga and meditation and trying to figure out different ways to gain an advantage in that arena. So no, as a young player, and I'm still a young player, but as a young player, I definitely, there's definitely times where I still was overwhelmed and struggled with things, self-doubt, whatever the case may be. But I just stayed the course and pretty much just as long as you don't give up and you keep inching forward and you try to be honest with yourself as much as you can, usually you can kind of find a solution.
I think that is the hardest thing for a lot of guys to realize. They may have all the physical talents in the world, especially if you're introspective and you're a smart person. Mm-hmm. You don't want to let your teammates down. You get overwhelmed. You maybe speed up or do stuff wrong, and self-doubt creeps in. And if you're doubting your pitches, it's kind of hard to pitch. Yeah,
it's not a fun place to be. But to me, it's one of those things where, at least for anyways, I can't really fake feeling good about my pitches or fake confidence. I have to put in the work. I have to follow a process and I have to see the results. I can't just naturally walk into a room and feel like I'm going to be the greatest thing ever. I have to really be kind of honed in on what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do to get that feeling.
Yeah. And the one thing that I've noticed is your whole pitching staff seems to have a little chip on your shoulder. which probably help. Do you feed off that?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is like the tone that Lance will set, Liam, all those guys. For me as a young guy, just seeing those guys carry themselves with confidence and not give hitters too much credit, it definitely inspires me.
Yeah, because I would imagine watching Lance pitch with his just all his theatrics, his F-bombs, his whatever it is.
Glorious.
Like, yeah, it's so freaking cool. Like, he owns the mound. He's on stage. He'll grab his crotch. He'll do whatever. He's so much fun to watch. And I think I underrated him for a while until you just watch him. And I can't imagine what he's like to have around in the clubhouse and as a fellow member of the staff.
Yeah, it's in this day and age, to be a primarily fastball-oriented pitcher and dominate, it's about as legendary as I can think of. So getting to be around it, see how he operates, and even if it's just observing what he does, you're gaining from that. So I feel really grateful. It's kind of getting some schooling in the old school department, if you will. It's very fun to watch on a daily basis.
Are you as good as he is with like creative F-bombs? Like, Liam is an F-bomb king. He'll just chuck them out there, everything he does. Lance has a little flair about it. And it's not just a normal F. There's adjectives thrown in. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Have you picked up any of that?
No, I'm nowhere near as creative as Lance in that area. Really, for me, the only time I ever drop one is if I give up a hit, especially if it's like I hung a changeup or something. It's just frustrating. It's like your fourth pitch and you just do that. You let him on base. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I can imagine that's frustrating, but I love like the whole camaraderie of the staff. Lucas has a bit of an attitude too. He's the nicest guy off the field. And then when he's on the bump, he's like, he's got his whole serious face, like he wants to kick your ass and stuff. Do you feel like you're a different person when you're on the bump versus off?
A different person. I don't know. I don't really pitch. I don't really have like a mean chip, I think, when I pitch. I'm more of just, I think, hyper focused. It's like more of, I'm focused on me and what I have to do. Whereas maybe those guys have a little more of like that harsh chip. I don't know how else you would word it. I'm in compete mode. I'm in fight mode, but it's not as outwardly, I guess it doesn't manifest as outwardly as it does for those guys. Mine's more inward.
The one thing I can pick up is you seem really confident though. Like, I can tell when you get the sign and you want it, you have a very confident nod that, yep, that's what I'm going to do. I don't know if you do that, but it certainly comes off if I'm watching you like, all right, this guy is going to shove the ball or he's got a plan and I don't know what I'm going to do as a hitter. Yeah,
it's a little bit of that is, we won't get into it, but yeah, it's right now, I'm the most confident I've ever been in my life with baseball. So I'm glad that's being picked up on. I want the hitters to know I'm confident. There's definitely that psychological component to the game. So anytime I'm giving off that body language, that's a win for me.
Did you pick that up from somebody? Did you know that? Is that something that you've always tried to do?
The head nodding?
The head nodding and just the number one, portraying confidence, but two, the head nodding specifically.
The head nodding is more just making sure I'm not giving anything away with like tipping. So that's more of just staying loose, flowing. But yeah, I like that. It's for confidence too now. I like that. What was the second part of the question?
Oh, I just like, was confidence always a thing with you, or did you ever doubt yourself when you were going at folks?
Oh, especially early in my career, I had a lot of self-doubt. I wasn't having success with the results, but that's something I'm able to kind of just weather the storm and get through the hard parts. And, I don't ever want to say, to me, it's always, I'm always trying to improve. I'm always trying to step up what I'm doing. So I don't feel like I've arrived by any means, but, for right now, I'm the most confident I've ever been.
Well, you've arrived in some respects because, like, for me, you're a must-watch guy, and you're like legit a handful of guys that are the best stuff in baseball. Like, objectively, as somebody that watches everybody. You know, and you know, maybe the best at times. Like it's so much fun to watch a guy go out there and dominate, and there's just nothing you can do about it. Like I love watching that.
Yeah, it's I'll tell you, when I'm in that state where I'm throwing pitches where I want to, it feels like a video game. It's the most empowering. It's the most empowering feeling I've really ever had in my life. It's like, you know, call a pitch, I'm going to throw it there. And it does, in those moments, it doesn't feel like the hitter has a chance. It doesn't matter where the pitch goes. It feels like I'm going to beat them.
I love that. And you're somebody who grew up on the whole travel. Did you play a lot? What age did you start playing travel ball?
Probably, what's the earliest age to do it? 10?
It's like, yeah, it's something like that.
Coach pitch was at 9. I think probably 10 or 11 was when I started it.
And were you always really good back then too? You mentioned you were a young, hard thrower. You were always a hard thrower.
Yes, I was more of an offensive juggernaut back in the day, though.
Apparently, you still are. Like I've heard rumors about that.
Yeah, I have some natural hitting ability. It was definitely my first love of baseball. I wanted to be a power hitting shortstop. So growing up, I have a twin brother, and he and I were basically always the same skill level. So there was always kind of that competitive drive to outdo each other. We were pretty ruthless toward each other. So I think that probably played into a little bit of kind of the obsession to improve.
Do you think being a shortstop actually helps you be a pitcher?
Yes, I think it more just shows that I have athleticism, and I think that's important for maybe like repeating mechanics, and then, you know, creating the powerful pitches. I mean, I think there's different ways to do it. Maybe some guys are more brute force, some guys are hit the shoulder or whatever. I think I'm more of the hit the shoulder and kind of athletic creation, as opposed to like super powerful.
So what do you think of when you mentioned you use a core velocity belt? So clearly you're a lower half guy. What other cues do you give yourself when you're throwing? When did you first start getting like pitching lessons and start being cognizant of mechanics? And then what did you learn that maybe you had to fix? And what do you think of today?
I think as a kid, I always just try to throw as hard as I could. It was always just beat people with power. The first lesson I can ever remember going to was with Mike Cather. He was a sidearm pitcher for the Atlanta Braves. Yep. This offseason, he actually came in and did the TrackMan stuff where I trained. So it was really funny going from having lessons with him when I was 9 to being 25, 26 and still working with him. But mechanical, I didn't even really understand anything about mechanics until I entered pro ball. And when I was with the Cubs, so I tore my elbow senior year of high school. I didn't really pitch much. My junior year was really the first year I ever really pitched. And like I said, sophomore year, I gained 10 miles an hour. I threw like 4 or 5 innings that year because our coaching staff was kind of trying to protect me in my arm. And then junior year is when I sort of came onto the scene and kind of got to the point where I was starting. And I think I threw maybe 70 innings or something like that. And I still didn't know anything about mechanics. I was just trying to throw the balls up as far as I could. So I never really had a super defined, I guess, mechanical focus in my career. Then I get into pro ball, and I'm like, all right, I got to figure out what actually makes pitches go where they need to go and what creates all this. So I would pick the mind of basically anyone I could when I was with the Cubs. I probably annoyed a lot of the older guys and tried to pick up on as much as I could with that. And right now, my only cue is my eyes are on the target. And when I'm in my flow state, when I put my eye on the target, the ball goes there.
So there's absolutely nothing that you need to think about, which is good. Like, I mean, you can't be thinking mechanics when you're pitching. That's just
no. It's kind of find that rhythm, and then, like I said, eyes on the target. And when I find that rhythm, I know it's going to be a tough day for hitters.
How helpful has Ethan been on stuff? Because I know his work with, obviously his long-term work with Lucas, but it seems like he has a really, really good understanding of mechanics that you don't have to think about it then.
I truthfully can't overstate how important he's been to my development. I mean, I mean, he essentially turned around my career. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. It's been that important for me. So big shout out to Ethan.
He'll watch
I
this. You know he'll watch this.
Oh yeah, he definitely will. I owe him a lot. That's for sure.
I always see after one of your all's outings, he's going through and liking tweets and going, yeah, which is awesome.
He's hip. He's young and hip.
Yeah, exactly. You see, like, I just can't think of a better group of guys though to go to war with than the guys you have. You guys have a unique playing character. I actually have a White Sox jersey on my wall right here because the team sent me one after the Field of Dreams game, which awesome. Was really cool. Yeah, so that's I always root for y'all because of the characters. Are you a weight room guy? Like, are you big in the weight room?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to be the strongest guy around, but I can keep up for the most part.
Because Liam said he doesn't work out at all.
No, Liam is very eccentric and he's got his own things that work for him. But man, how can you can't fault it. The guy throws 99 with unbelievable play on his fastball. I mean, him, Garrett Crochet, Carlos, and Michael Kopech have the best fastballs I've seen live. And I'll throw Lucas into that. He's got the best low to mid 90s fastball I've ever seen with how it gets on players.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you go down it like that and throw Lanson with all his various fastballs.
Yeah, I didn't even
stuff.
Yeah, throw him and his ridiculous sinkers and cutters. What's cool is when you actually get to play catch with the guys and you get to see like what exactly their pitches do, you kind of start understanding like why it plays that way. So like you play catch with Michael Kopech and you watch him live and from behind, and all you see is hitters swinging and missing that fastballs. And you're like, that looks like it's right down the middle. What's going on? You play catch with him and he'll throw one that starts at your chest and you feel like it's going to hit you in the head. That's how much life it has. So it's like, all right, I understand why hitters swing and miss at that. With Lance's stuff, he'll throw you pitches and they all spin similarly. And then one's going this way, one's going that way. And then one's riding up. And you're like, all right, I get why you have success now too. So it's cool. It's cool. I wish fans could, fans wouldn't be able to catch it probably, but it would be cool if people could experience that.
You make a really good point because I think fans underestimate how filthy some of this stuff is. And if you do try to catch it, you'll see when a catcher gets crossed up, they're hosed. So you just think of a batter has no idea what's coming usually. And how hard is it to hit with something way smaller than a glove, catching it with a glove? It's tough. Like maybe we do give hitters too much credit a lot of times.
Yeah, we do. And some of them deserve it. I mean, like there's what they do is pretty incredible. So when they have success and they can hit these 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, it's like, all right, you're obviously a very talented person. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're the casino, we're the house, it's like you're going to be lucky if you get on 30% of the time or 30, 40% of the time. So keep that in mind. And then to realize if you're in that next upper, I guess, echelon of pitching, then it's even more difficult. So the odds are definitely stacked in our favor just from the get-go.
Yeah. And nothing can happen. This is the attitude I think more pitchers should take too, is like nothing happens too until you throw. You're in control of everything up there. The hitter's reacting. You're on offense actually as a pitcher. They're on defense trying to get a hit. We have that reversed. I think the pitcher's an offensive position.
Yeah, you get to be. That's another great thing is as a pitcher, you get to be proactive. You don't have to be reactive. So the hitter, they can be proactive to a certain extent, but for the most part, they have to be more reactive. So I think it's kind of our job to set the tone and set that, set that play.
Do you feel like setting the tone is important? Because your guys do. The guys on your staff set the tone for the team. When they're out there, I can tell they feed off that confidence. Do you feel that not an obligation, but do you feel that almost inherent in your position?
I think for starters, anytime a starting pitcher dominates the other team, it absolutely breathes life and confidence into the team. And I feel like it's my responsibility to be the best pitcher I can be. And if I am the pitcher that can do that, then yes, in a sense, it is my responsibility to do that. But without a doubt, when you have good starting pitching, it sets a tone, and I think people can feed off of that. And then all it takes is, TA leading off with a home run or one or two little things happening. And then it can truly feel like you can get 2 runs and it can almost feel like the other team has no chance, So that's definitely a good place to be.
Does it feed the reverse? Like TA is a confident player. Do you guys watch him play and go, you know what? It almost naturally, you don't even have to think about it. You're going to feed off that confidence too.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100% it does.
Well, let's go into, number one, I saw a cat going around there. Is that right? Yeah. I know Lucas has cats. Well, Lucas and Liam both have cats, right?
Yes, they're big cat people. They're in play mode right now, unfortunately. So I don't think they're going to be too snuggly. But I have 2 beautiful Tonkinese. Hey, say hi.
Nice. Hey, you're on PitchingNinja's show. What's up?
PitchingNinja.
What's up, cats?
2 beautiful Tonkinese kitties that I love very much.
Did you ever think about naming one Ethan? Sorry, that's a bad cat stroke.
It's
I'm sure you all have done that.
I don't think they'd be happy with that. They're both girls. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you never know. It's I just remember totally. Lucas sat on his kittens during an interview. They were just like crawling behind him, and I'm like, dude, what is going on? He's like,
did they scream?
No, but he thought he was going to crush them to death. And then Liam had one, and Liam just like threw it off. I'm like, dude, you're throwing weighted cats. You're not into like lifting and all that, but you throw weighted cats.
Yeah, they're both definitely cat people. I am now too. I would have never thought in a million years. Then I got these cats, and the rest is history.
Who is the crazy, like, as far as like attitudes on the team, who really stands out as like, that guy's insane?
Liam's the most eccentric. He cracks me up. That guy's hilarious. Most insane. I mean, it'd have to be, but I don't want it to come off in any negative.
Oh no, there's no negative. Like I've used insane as a positive. That is always, yeah.
I mean, Liam's definitely the most. I would say you don't know what you're liable to hear or see something outrageous with Liam mostly. I think Lance is like he's gritty. That's what I like about Lance. He's blue collar. He's gritty. He's a fighter. He's not, he is what he is. So, who else is insane? I mean, yeah, those are definitely the 2 that stick out the most.
Yeah. They were both in the finalists for the Phallus Mouth Award last year, and I gave it to Lance because he was the most creative. Like I could have given it to Liam, right? Like you could, because he says the most and he's loud. The All-Star game was awesome with him blurting it out. And I did get him to convince him to throw that knuckleball, which was pretty awesome in the All-Star.
That thing was nasty too.
I know. And it was a strike and he didn't get it.
If we're in the outfield and he looks at me and I can tell he wants to throw me one, I don't let him do it because that thing will hit me in the face at some point. It's nasty. It's a legit pitch.
So he also talked about, I know when he was on the A's, putting naked or doing something, they had these things in the locker room that like after a game, they got to do stuff. Does he still do that stuff? Is he grown up a little bit?
Putting naked? I haven't seen putting naked, but I've seen plenty, if not too much naked. Yeah.
Yeah, I think any Liam naked is too much naked. He's also big. So him and Gio are both big Codify guys. I know you've worked some with them. Does that help you visualize the zone and stuff, like to know how to attack hitters?
I worked with them a lot last year, and then this year I'm kind of more going off of our scouting report. But yeah, it's definitely a nice tool to have. It simplifies. You don't have to. I think a lot of times with scouting reports, the thing I don't like about them is it'll be like, sometimes it'll make a hitter sound like he's Babe Ruth, you can't throw him fastballs and you can't do this. You got to be careful of this. And then that can start seeping into your mind. It's like, all right, I can't throw him heaters inside. I can't do this. And you start kind of getting timid. So I think with the maps, what's good about them is there isn't the language. There's just the, hey, this spot, there's red. You can throw it there. It's like, okay, I know what I can do.
You make a really good point, because I think when you look at that, you are giving too much credit to the hitters, and they haven't faced your fastball. Exactly. Your curveball, your way of attacking hitters is totally different. And I think that we do give hitters too much credit sometimes. And I can see that, like, especially as a younger, any pitcher, you have to have that confidence out there and just shove while still being intelligent about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like for me, I mean, if I see a report that said this guy can hit spin well, my first thought is, I don't know if he's seen my spin. You know, right. I don't think that it always applies.
The other thing is, and this is something that I don't think scouting reports pick up really well, nor does technology right now, is deception. Like, do you feel, I know when you're playing catch with somebody, there's some deception involved. Like, it's not just hiding the ball, it's quirkiness, it's something else about them that throws them off. And I think we get too tied up in things we see, analytics, spin rate, all other stuff, without taking that kind of stuff, mental game and deception into account, because we can't measure it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think the newest thing is that is a vertical approach angle.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out why, you know, hey, this guy doesn't have that 20 ride, but he gets 15, but it plays like 20. So yeah, all that, honestly, most of the analytics stuff is over my head. It's never it definitely takes some interpretation, but yeah, there's something to be said about funkiness, or guys who change up timing, like Cortez on the Yankees, or like Stroman does. So there's definitely things that you can't measure in the game of baseball.
Yeah, and as we were talking about, your confidence too, like confidence you can't measure, but it's clear. Like when you can see it as a person, there's some things that we don't measure really well. The intangible stuff, I think, even as fans that play like fantasy baseball and stuff, like you're only looking at stats. You're like, plug these players together and this is going to be the best team. That doesn't necessarily make the best team in real life. You need characters, you need people around you, a playing personality. How important is that to you guys and the White Sox in general?
Yeah, you got to have team camaraderie. You got to have camaraderie, and then you know, everyone willing to have each other's backs. You know, willing to put in effort and then accept each other. And, you know, like if I'm pitching and someone on my defense doesn't make a play, I'm not upset. I know they're giving it everything they have and the game's hard. I have his back, and I want my teammates to feel that. And then I feel that for them as well. So I think when you have that closeness and that cohesiveness, it just helps everyone relax a little bit, because we all know we're on the same page.
Yeah. So pulling together, being on the same team, and then being able to play loose and being able to make a mistake. Like, I think making a mistake, if you hold yourself to that standard, you're going to play tight.
Yeah. It's perfectionism. It's unrealistic.
Yep, exactly. Well, let's go through some pitch grips.
Okay.
I'll let you choose your order unless you want me to do it, but we can start with a fastball since everybody starts.
Right. We'll start fastball. So I go fingers together, and kind of just your general fastball. What's important is the horseshoe facing out. Back in AA, we realized that gives me more spin. So for whatever reason, horseshoe facing out, fingers together. I'm pretty sure I do fingers together, because I remember watching Verlander back in like probably 13, 14, 15. I remember seeing a video of him doing it. And then ever since that, I kind of just did it. So I don't know if it adds any spin or any value, but you know, I kind of like that feel. So that's the four-seamer right there.
Is he a guy that you've modeled yourself after at all?
He's a guy who he was my favorite pitcher, essentially. One of my favorite pitchers, Lincecum, him, Matt Harvey when in his heyday. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to be remotely as nasty as any of those guys. I wouldn't say I necessarily modeled myself after them, but it's, you know, watching him dominate, I wanted to dominate the same way that he does.
I see a little bit of that though. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it until we just started talking.
I would say our pitches have pretty similar profiles. I think he's got the big curveball, slider. His change was probably a little more advanced than mine is right now, but I'm still working on it. So yeah, I think, you know, I'm not going to put myself in that same category just because he's proven it for so long and he is one of the greatest of all time. But anytime you can be compared to him, it really is an honor. Yeah,
the Lincecum thing probably is a little more of a stretch because he's just unique in himself. Like that dude was
my freshman year of high school, I literally mimicked his mechanics and tried to be exactly like him. And then I think sophomore year, I said, all right, I'm going over the top, and we're not copying that anymore.
Didn't we like that was, I think people underestimate the influence that Tim Lincecum had on the whole mechanic stuff.
Absolutely. There's got to be thousands and thousands and thousands of kids and ball players that try to copy that. It was so cool to watch.
Absolutely. Like this little guy who's just throwing flames because he's a rubber band.
Yeah, it was really one of a kind. Really one of a kind.
Yep, exactly. And I know that like I was in a community of folks that just talked pitching, and he was always like, how do we dissect Tim Lincecum? And it turns out he may just be unique. Like he just may be one of one, and he moves that way.
Yeah, he does. I think, and he practiced it his whole life. So there's something to be said about getting that much repetition and experience with it. You know, it's going to be hard to come in last minute and change everything and see if you can copy it. So yeah, what a incredibly talented ball player he was.
Yeah, nuts. All right, so next pitch, what are we going to do?
We can go slider.
Okay.
All right, so for my slider, so we got kind of the two seam, part of the ball right here. My fingertips aren't on the laces. They're sort of off to the side, but like the middle of my fingers on the laces.
So a little one seam type thing, kind of.
Yeah, kind of one seam, and then my thumb's kind of here on the bottom. I'm not thinking like pressure or anything. I'm kind of just gripping it relaxed and loose, and there's a little bit of space right here, and then the rest of it's just kind of resting in my hand. So with the slider, I just relax my arm and throw it like a fastball.
So are you trying to you're not trying to get more of a sweeping thing? It sweeps a little bit. It's got a little horizontal, but it's not a hugely horizontal pitch.
Honestly, I'm not trying to do anything with it right now.
You're just throwing it like a fastball, screw it. And
I'm just throwing it down the middle and then letting it do its thing.
Yep. Yeah. That part also reminded me a little of Verlander, because when you started saying that, I was trying to fit in my mind. I'm trying to see who to compare you with. And I think that's pretty good because his slider is somewhat similar to that, I think.
Yeah. It almost looks more like a faster curveball from time to time, but I don't even know the analytics off the top of my head on it, but I'm sure it's got a little bit of horizontal to it. But yeah, I like where it's at right now. Awesome.
Your curveball, which is like one of my favorite pitches. Like I think it is an absolute freaking hammer, and it's very unique in the way it looks.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite. So let's see. So I'll take this part of the ball. Finger here. I have a little gap in between. I think Ron Valone taught me the gap. I can't remember 100% sure, but Ron Valone for the Cubs was the first person I remember talking about having a little gap there. And in the minor leagues, my curveball was like this. And then I got to AA, and it was kind of loopy. It was like 75. I wasn't able to really throw it hard. And Dane Dunning showed me the grip that I think James Shield had taught him. So I guess technically my grip comes from James Shields. But yeah, this is what it looks like from behind.
And you're just trying to get right to the front of the ball and thinking true for. I mean, it's pretty much a 12-6.
Yeah, it's a true 12-6. I'm not thinking anything other than where I need to put my eyes on the target. And the hard thing with the curveball is sometimes it has so much depth that it's like I got to throw it way up into empty space, and it can kind of feel uncomfortable because it's like, I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm like releasing it ridiculously high, but sometimes just I have to do it.
So I had a video, an overlay of you throwing a curveball and I think was it to Marsh maybe? It was an elevated fastball and a curveball, and the curveball tunneled perfectly with a fastball that was basically over his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes it doubly tough on a hitter. I think people don't understand, like, tunneling isn't just, I'm going to tunnel it with a fastball down the middle. Sometimes it's the hitter's going to give up on it because it starts out so absurdly high that they think it's a heater up.
It makes everything play better. So now I can start throwing my 97, 98, 4 or 5 inches above the zone, and maybe they start swinging And then if I start a breaking ball up there, you know, there's a chance that they're going to give up on it. And then when I'm throwing them both for strikes, it's pretty much it's very difficult on the batter. So that's when it becomes like anything. I feel like anything I throw is going to get the job done because they're tunneling off each other and they're making everything play better. So like my change of speed with my slider and my curveball is now going to make my fastball feel like it's 100 as opposed to 96. So that's the point you're trying to get to, where everything sort of helps each other.
And for you, again, the vertical approach is what you feel is most successful for you in attacking hitters. Some guys, you know, nowadays it's people love that big sweeping thing and stuff, but there's more than one way to skin the cat. Sorry, just
you hear that?
Hey, yeah, we're not going to skin you. We're going to pet you. That's not what we do on this show. We are friends of cats. Ooh, look at that.
Oh, that was rude.
Nice. So what is up with your freaking changeup? Like that thing, I don't understand it. I don't know what you're doing. This is what I think you're doing, and I may be totally wrong. It's like a baby split with your thumb way off it or something?
Essentially. So basically watching Lucas dominate with his changeup, I've been craving having one that just drops off the bottom, drops off. So I kind of changed like that little splitter grip last year, and I didn't have crazy good success with it. And then this off season, I just started playing around, and I threw a couple where I put my thumb and my pinky together, and it just felt good. For me, I have to kind of feel like I'm behind the ball, like coming down on it. I'm not great. Like I don't feel that.
You don't pronate really well. You're more
So I found something where I feel like I can kind of I have stability with it in my hand, if that makes sense. So I feel like I can kind of just stay behind it and aim it down the middle and sort of let it do its thing. So yeah, it's kind of a unique grip, and who knows, maybe I'll keep playing around with it. It's not exactly my forte, but it's definitely something that's more usable than it's ever really been for me.
It actually is kind of funky because the speed differential is insane.
Exactly.
Like what is it, like 20 miles an hour or more difference sometimes?
Yeah. So I might play around with trying to throw it with a little bit more arm speed, but I do like to change the speed with it. I just have to get it down. If I get it down, it's fine. But if I leave it up, there's so much time for the hitter to kind of maybe if he's fooled for a second, he's fooled and then he's still there and he can kind of just flick his hands at it. So yeah, I can keep it like that as long as I keep it down in the zone, which is my focus on it right now.
Which is different from Lucas because Lucas can play with it up and
throw it anywhere. Yeah, it would be nice to have something like that. Definitely.
Has he not worked with you on some of that? Because this is working for you though.
I think for starters, his hands are probably like 4 inches longer than mine, if I had to guess. So there's a lot of factors in it. He showed me his grip. It was like a circle. I think it's like a circle change type of grip.
It is.
For me, it's just not something that felt comfortable.
He also gets ride on it. Like he had a hard time also. We talked about this and I think he ended up, so we were talking about him K-ing Trout. Like he threw a mutant changeup last year. Right? Yeah.
3-2.
I think I screamed out of my chair when he threw it. Like he got a foul nuke and then threw this wicked changeup. That was like he's like, man, that was the first time I threw a PitchingNinja changeup, which is usually the harder, the easier ones for me to show are the ones that fade a lot. And his is tougher because you have to, if you overlay it with his fastball, you can show it. But
it's sort of a parachute changeup.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of what yours did. Like I just actually did one. Same thing. I did an overlay with you, one of your 2-year Trout Ks, like a 98 and then a 77 changeup. And it looks like it's parachuting out, and you can see he completes his swing before the changeup would get there. So maybe you're right that a hitter could, if he resets and notices it, have something left. But I love the huge speed differential too. That's insane.
Yeah, it's also more fun to watch, honestly, when you see something like low to mid 70s kind of just floating up there and getting the job done. It's pretty entertaining.
Do you ever get entertained with your own stuff, or like you're too busy competing? Is there ever a time where you're sitting there going, that was freaking nasty?
A lot of the times it'll be the highlights after, and I'll see it. I'm like, man, it looks very nasty coming out of my hand off the mound. But then sometimes I'll see a highlight and it's like, gosh, that's pretty crazy.
Are you really critical of yourself usually?
Yeah, very hypercritical.
That probably was hard to lose because it's part of what makes you great, right? Like you have to constantly improve and figure out your weak spots, but it also is tough to do in the moment. If you're hypercritical of yourself, you're very almost paranoid and careful instead of attacking.
Yes, I think that I think what ends up happening is long run, it's fantastic. Short term, I think it can be harder for somebody like my personality to feel naturally like they're going to go in and dominate. You know, for me, it's like, all right, I have to really analyze and assess why and figure out why. But I think when you get to the end of the tunnel, the way I do it, now it's like confidence isn't even. There's a yogi I like named Sadhguru, and he talks about clarity over confidence. For me, where I'm at right now, it would be hard not to be confident because I'm throwing 4 pitches, couple plus pitches for strikes consistently. You know, it's like, I guess it's kind of like not putting the cart before the horse. You know, like I'm taking care of what needs to be taken care of, and that's naturally breeding confidence. So I don't know if the confidence comes first or the results, whatever. But yeah, I'm in a place right now where it's hard not to be confident.
Are you that confident in everything else you do?
It depends. I guess it depends what I'm trying to do. I would say I naturally kind of have high expectations in a lot of areas. Whether I'm confident at it or not, it's almost not even. I'm willing to like work at it. You know, I'm willing to go from being not good to better to hopefully great. So maybe I wouldn't say I'm the most naturally confident person, but I'm kind of willing to hang in there and try to figure it out.
So it's a matter of putting it, you will outwork the problem sometimes. Like you'll put in more effort than maybe most people would put in and drive through walls.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm working harder than most people, but I'm not satisfied with being average in what I'm doing for the most part. So I think that's important in terms of just continuing the staying better and staying humble.
Were you like that in school too? Because I know you were a Vandy commit, right, at one point?
I wasn't. I found school to be a lot kind of busy work, so I wasn't always the most motivated with it. It just felt like, I don't know. It didn't really feel like I was gaining much other than information being shoved down my throat to memorize for a day and then get rid of it. So I wasn't the most studious student.
Dude, that sounds a lot. So I mean, I went through the same thing where, you know, I ended up being a lawyer, went to law school, but I didn't figure it out until law school that if I worked hard at it and I took ownership of it versus I felt the same way, like memorizing stuff, having stuff thrown at you. Like, it's just like, what's the purpose of it? I tune out. Like I have a very short attention span.
It's kind of like, I don't know. And it's also interesting how it can mold you, you know, like if you think about it, it's really, you gotta raise your hand and ask to go to the bathroom. You're becoming almost like, I don't know.
Not an individual.
It's molding you to be a certain way. And it's not necessarily like, I don't feel like schooling really helped develop me as a human being. Maybe one aspect of me, which is the intellect and the organization and studying and all that. I mean, that's part of it, but I don't feel like it really developed me as a person.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, there's some people that excel at school that are really good at memorizing, telling you what you want to hear. But in the end, it's the creativity, the ability to think for yourself that is going to make the difference, and not regurgitating what someone else.
Problem solving. True problem solving that takes more than just looking at your study guide. You know, I think that's where, I don't know, my experience with schooling there wasn't a whole lot of that for the most part.
And I think that's the same thing with players and coaching sometimes too. I think sometimes players listen too much to coaches. Like if you're told what to do, get that rubber band. So, I mean, I think it almost teaches subservience as opposed to challenging authority, thinking for yourself and learning it, deep learning versus being told to do and following directions.
Yeah. In my opinion, I will listen to anyone that says that they have something that will help me or make me better, or I will give anyone my full attention in the time of day. It's just whether or not what they say rings true or seems plausible. So if if a high school coach came up to me and said, "Hey man, I have something that's working for my kids. Why don't you try this out?" I'll listen to him, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use what he has, but I'm willing to give anyone a chance.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's versus automatically assuming that the person knows what they're talking about and obeying it and following it. It's best a challenge. Yeah. What is next for you? Like, are there any pitches you're working on? You ever thinking about like a cutter or thinking about like?
No, I think just sustained high level of execution, and continuing to do the little things like the visualization or the core velo belt, the things that are continuing to keep me on track, and just managing myself, not getting too far ahead of myself, not getting too high, low, and really just kind of staying in my lane.
Do you set goals for yourself?
Yes. I mean, more of my goals tend to be, I think, process oriented more than just, hey, I'm going to win the sign, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's more like, what do I need to focus on? But yeah, I definitely will have things I'm striving for.
Or you're going to win the Cy Young. Come on.
Yeah. Anytime, any super high end goal, absolutely, I would love to achieve. Yes.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. This has been great. One other thing, do you feel like a role model to kids? Like, are you one of those guys that wants to pay the game forward for other folks?
I haven't viewed myself as that. I think it's because inherently, like when you live with yourself, you're biased, like I know my flaws, I know this, I know that. So I've never really looked at myself as a role model or a leader, but I absolutely would love to be. I mean, that's actually a great question. Do I see myself as a role model? I would love to be. Yeah, that would be awesome. I don't know if I think I still have a lot of things to work on and keep improving before I'm there, but that would be awesome.
Well, one of the things that I've just heard from other folks is they're loving watching you pitch right now because of exactly the stuff that we've talked about, the execution, the confidence, and the stuff. And it's just must watch TV. So I wish nothing but success for you. I hope to see you, hope to be at the All-Star game and hope to see you there too. Last year I ran into Carlos and Liam and Lance there. So it was fun. We meet up while we're there.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Have a little rendezvous.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool, man. It's been great. And I will let you go and play with your cats. Get ready for the game. Let's win.